Hi everyone, today I'll be watching I Found the Worst Pokemon by Mr. VGC. That's Wolf. Hi, I'm Maple. I like Pokemon. I clicked on this because I love Trubbish. And on the thumbnail, you can see like, okay, editor put the thumbnail right there. Wow, that's crazy. I saw Trubbish. Now, I saw Trubbish and I'm like, wow, I like Trubbish. But I'm going to assume that he's not gonna like, I guess, count like the baby Pokemon or something like that. Because like, well, it's a baby. I'm going to assume he's gonna like take into account like the fully evolved versions if they exist and that kind of stuff to see if they actually suck. Or I could be wrong, he'll just shit on a baby. Anyways, let's watch this together. I'm excited. Blah.
There are over 1,000 Pokemon, and every single one of them is somebody's favorite. But somebody is wrong. Because with over 1,000 Pokemon, one of them has to be worse than every other one.
I'm trying to remember. There was like a survey done like really like far back. And by really far back, I mean every time I want to recall this kind of stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like a couple years ago. And then I search up when it was actually done and it was like a decade ago. That's normally what happens, right? I think the worst Pokemon according to popularity was maybe like Panpour or something like that, or like the evolved one. It was like the least favorite Pokemon ever. It got like, I don't know, 20 votes or some shit like that.
And I'm going to find it. At first, I thought this task would be simple. After all, there are some Pokemon clearly designed to be bad, the most famous one being Magikarp. It's useless competitively, it's not very good in a playthrough, and the design, although iconic, is rather basic. It's just a really floppy fish. So I was just about ready to pat myself on the back after a hard day of being a YouTuber, but then I realized something. Magikarp evolves into Gyarados. Now I know that most of you probably already knew that, but think about it in this context. Magikarp is the only Pokemon that can evolve into Gyarados. That's something unique and distinct to the orange fish. So how could I possibly name Magikarp as the worst Pokemon of all time when it's the only Pokemon capable of turning into one of the most iconic monsters in the entire franchise? And the more that I thought about it, the more I realized that a lot of the Pokemon who are clear standouts to be the worst Pokemon ever evolve into something better. Feebas, for example, is basically Magikarp with a reskin, but Milotic is such a great Pokemon that there's no way that its pre-evolution could be the worst Pokemon of all time. This is going to be a lot harder than I expected.
Okay, yeah, then that means I assumed correctly in the beginning where he's gonna go by the final evolution. It's like, okay, well, this Pokemon may suck, but when it evolves, it's really good, and it's just that the baby had potential.
So let's talk about what factors I'm going to be considering here. First, how good a Pokemon is competitively. I am a competitive player, and I think being able to use a Pokemon and have it actually be good is enough of a reason to keep it off my list. I'll only be considering the official competitive formats for competitive play, so if a Pokemon was good in a fan format like Zoodle used, they aren't safe from me. I'll also be considering how good a Pokemon is during a casual playthrough of a game. And this probably goes without saying, but this is not factoring in any ROM hacks. I'll be factoring in how memorable and recognizable a Pokemon is. So everything from Generation 1 is safe, because let's be honest, they're all iconic, even Mr. Mime. I will also be giving points to Pokemon that do something unique, even if that unique thing kinda sucks. Like Minior is not a good Pokemon, but I think the different colored cores thing is neat enough that it keeps it safe from this list for now. And on that note, I will also be judging these Pokemon based on how they look. This is the most subjective part of the process, and I'll give it less weight than the other categories, but ultimately, a Pokemon's design is pretty important, and to not consider it under the guise of this being some kind of objective list, in my opinion, would be misleading. This list is subjective based on my tastes. My tastes just happen to be exquisite. For example, Sudowoodo will not be appearing on this list because I think it's really funny. I spent a ton of time poring over the Pokedex, searching for the worst Pokemon of all time. And in the end, I narrowed it down to 10 contenders.
So basically, he went through the entire Pokedex, flipped through it, being like, okay, this one's neat. This one's neat. This one's neat. Oh, this one's god awful. This one's neat. This one's neat. This one's neat. Oh, this one fucking sucks. This one's neat.
Let's talk about these 10, starting with the Pokemon that I've deemed least offensive among them, Ledian. Ledian is just awful. It's a bug and flying type Pokemon introduced in Generation 2.
I always found this Pokemon cute until I played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. And then like Ladybug and Ladian hitting me in the face with Comet Punch. And I don't know what it is with Comet Punch in like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Maybe it's always guaranteed 5 hit. I feel like I've only ever been hit in the face 5 times by Comet Punch. And when you have a level difference in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, it actually sucks. They do so much damage to you. It's crazy. So I have PTSD. So I don't think Ladian sucks. Because I have PTSD.
And competitively speaking, it's one of the worst fully evolved Pokemon ever. Bug and Flying is not very good typing, but some Pokemon can make it work with good abilities or good moves. Butterfree, for example, has been good a couple of times during competitive play because it gets moves like Sleep Powder, which can be quite scary. Ledian gets truly nothing. Almost none of the useful supporting moves that Bug Pokemon learn were given to Ledian. Now, this could have been okay if Ledian had good stats. Can we show Ledian's stats, please?
400
Oh,
EST?
wow, that's actually even worse than I remember.
35 attack? Look, I know it has more special attack and everything like that, but like, come on, it's only 20 more. Wait, why is it so bad?
Less HP than Hoot Hoot, less attack than Chinchou, less defense than Apom, and less special attack than Elekid. What were they thinking? Sometimes Pokemon with bad stats can still be saved if they have a great ability, like Ditto or Shedinja. Ledian has 3 abilities to choose from. Swarm, which powers up only its Bug-type moves, and only when it's about to be knocked out. It's more or less useless. Ledian's already so frail that it's difficult to get it to low enough HP that Swarm's gonna activate, at least without it getting knocked out. Also, powering up Bug-type moves is not especially impressive, given it's easier to find a resistance to Bug than it is to find an ice cream store in a beach town. Ledian's second ability, Early Bird, lets it sleep for less time if it gets put to sleep. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, aren't there multiple abilities that just prevent sleep altogether?
Yeah, there's like multiple abilities that prevent sleep altogether. On top of that, I feel like if the option arose, I could put your Ladian to sleep, or I could just kill it. You'll probably have an easier time just killing it.
Yes, there are. This ability sucks. There's also no need to put Ledian to sleep when you can just knock it out.
That's what I said!
And then there's Iron Fist. This is a good ability when it's being used by the right Pokemon.
Oh my god, a 20% attack boost to my 35 attack stat. That's crazy. Oh my god, that's so gang. What?
Iron Fist powers up all punching moves by 20%, which on a strong fighting type Pokemon like Conkeldurr can be really valuable, but nearly all punching moves are physical. What was Ledian's attack stat again? Right. So Ledian is actually doomed competitively, but that's not the only thing I'm considering here. How good is Ledian during a playthrough? Extremely bad. So that just leaves the more subjective stuff, design, cultural impact, etc. I personally like Ledian's design, but I don't think that it's especially memorable. If it had been introduced in Generation 5, I think Gen 1ers would have been flaming it online. And I also am going to say that I don't think it's had a huge impact on either the Pokemon franchise or the general public.
Yeah, like, I think it's cute, but like, I just remember it because I was punched in the face in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I don't know how many people have been punched in the face in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon specifically, you know?
Really, the only reason it's even somewhat memorable is because it was introduced so early on in the franchise's lifespan. Now, the one good thing that I can say about Ledian is that the other Pokemon on this list are worse, including the number 9 worst Pokemon of all time, Carnivine.
Like, I feel like I understand for Carnivine, if you only played like Pokemon games, then yeah, this thing is not very memorable at all. But in terms of like the Pokemon franchise, like James had a Carnivine. And I loved him. Well, all his Pokemon absolutely adored him, right? But I feel like it was really iconic in the anime.
I have personal beef with Carnivine because I remember playing Diamond and Pearl as a kid and being so excited to use a Carnivine when I caught one, only to realize that this thing is turbo garbage. Carnivine is a pure grass-type Pokemon with the ability Levitate. Levitate makes you immune to all ground-type moves. Carnivine, as a grass-type, already resisted ground-type moves. Carnivine does not get any other abilities.
You know, that's really unfortunate because, like, Levitate's a really good ability. It's just that it's on a grass type, and I don't think his BST is like that great either. I don't know about his I think his stat spread is also kind of ass, so it's just kind of unfortunate.
Carnivine stats are better than Ledian's. But
Oh boy! I can't believe I'm better than Ladian. That's crazy.
that's going to be true of literally every other Pokemon on this list, and it does not mean the stats are good. A Pokemon's stats can be roughly understood in 3 ways. Can this Pokemon hit hard? Can this Pokemon take attacks without fainting? And is this Pokemon fast? For Carnivine, the answer to all 3 is no. Don't get me wrong, other than the speed stat, none of the other stats are explicitly terrible, but they also aren't good. In order for a Pokemon to be useful, it has to be able to do at least one thing kind of well, and Carnivine, unfortunately, cannot. To me, it feels like Carnivine was designed with the intention of giving it an evolution. At least that's how I feel when I look at its stats and its ability. But that feeling isn't based in anything apparently, because Carnivine does not evolve. This is all you're gonna get. And my question to that is, why? Carnivine has received absolutely no love from the franchise. No Gigantamax form, no Mega Evolution, no signature Z move.
Look, man, in Gen 10, this video will be so outdated. He's gonna get an evolution, trust. I don't know, I feel like Pokemon always has like a really long plan down the line for some Pokemon, right? Because I feel like I saw recently, editor, remind me to search this up later. Thank you. Recently, a bunch of beta designs were released, right? And I think Tandemaus was like on the design sheets back in Gen 3. And I'm like, Tandemaus came out in Gen 9. So they plan a lot of these Pokemon or like use a lot of designs from like really far back, and they're getting introduced 6 gens later is kind of crazy.
In fact, Carnivine wasn't even put into either Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet. I guess because they realized that there was really no point in including it, which frankly, I agree with. I really do feel like one day Carnivine's going to be given something, and my personal bet is on an evolution, but until then, it's on my list. You should subscribe to this YouTube channel on youtube.com/WolfeyVGC, baby. In all honesty, subscribing helps the channel out a lot, and it actually doesn't hurt you all at all. Like, there's no cost to doing it. So if you don't mind, that'd be cool. And there can even be a benefit, which is that if you subscribe, you're more likely to be served my videos in the future. And obviously, we all know that sometimes YouTube's algorithm is a little weird. You might not like get naturally pushed every video. So if you like this content, if you think it's cool, if you want to learn more about competitive Pokemon, or you want to see more of this guy, you should subscribe. Please, I'm begging. I guess I'm not begging yet. I guess I'm begging. I'm asking. I'm not begging. You know what I mean. Our number 8 slot is a Pokemon that you might not expect from me given my name, but I hate it. It's Lycanroc, but specifically Lycanroc Midnight. For any unaware Dundozos, the Pokemon Rockruff evolves into a Lycanroc with a different form depending on what time it evolves. If it's daytime, it becomes Lycanroc Midday. If it's nighttime, it becomes Lycanroc Midnight. And if it's between 7 and 8 p.m. specifically, and it's a special Rockruff with the own tempo ability, which Rockruff normally can't have, then it will become Lycanroc Dusk. Sure, why not? Anyway, while the other 2 Lycanroc have cool designs and are actually pretty good, Lycanroc Midnight sucks, both competitively and in its design. It's a pure rock type Pokemon. Look at this thing and tell me that it doesn't look like it should be a dark type too. Well, it's not. Now, to be clear, rock and dark is not a good type combination.
It also would make it 4 times weak to, I don't know, fighting.
Yes, I know Tyranitar is good, but the typing isn't really the reason for its strength. The thing is, another type means more moves a Pokemon can learn, and given how bad Lycanroc Midnight is, it really needs all the help it can get. It's funny too, because both the other Lycanroc forms have been good at some point. Lycanroc Dusk got a special Z move that could do tons of damage, and Lycanroc Midday was good during Scarlet and Violet because of its ability Sand Rush, doubling its speed stat in the sand. Lycanroc Midnight, however, gets nothing. It's got 3 abilities. Keen Eye, which prevents your accuracy from being lowered. Worthless. Vital Spirit, which prevents it from falling asleep. Useful on a tanky Pokemon, which Lycanroc is not. And No Guard. No Guard is a really interesting ability that causes all moves used by and targeting the user to never miss. But Lycanroc has no way to make use of this ability. It's mostly useful in a Pokemon that can learn powerful moves that are inaccurate. For example, Machamp with Dynamic Punch. Lycanroc doesn't get any of these powerful, inaccurate moves beyond like Stone Edge, which players run even without No Guard. I actually recently built a team where I needed a Pokemon with No Guard in order to pull off the strategy. And the only 2 options that were available in Scarlet and Violet were Lycanroc Midnight and Go Lurk. I chose Go Lurk. If Lycanroc Midnight were as fast as the other 2 Lycanrocs, it might have still been okay.
Oh, I didn't realize they made it 82 speed. I just assumed all the Lycan rocks were built just as fast.
But it's got this really awkward stat spread that, among other issues, is way too slow. Basically, for some reason, they took 30 points out of the speed stat of Lycanroc midday and put 10 of them in each of
I don't know why video flashed there. Wow.
Lycanroc Midnight's 3 defensive stats. But these stats weren't good enough to begin with that this actually makes it feel that much tankier, especially given that Rock isn't a very good defensive type. In other words, Game Freak basically just took Lycanroc midday and found a way to make it worse in almost every way possible. During a playthrough, Lycanroc Midnight is always going to be worse than Lycanroc midday because it's just so much slower.
Yeah, you'd expect rock type to be better like defensively, because when you think about punching a rock, you'd be like, well, it's gonna hurt. But then in the Pokemon world, well, I guess the real world too, obviously, we have Steel.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Both Lycanroc Dusk and Lycanroc Midday get a signature move called Excel Rock, which is a rock type move that always moves first. In fact, it's the only rock type move with a stage of increased priority. Okay, technically Wide Guard is the only rock, you know what I mean? Wide Guard's technically a rock type move, but it's a support move. It's not like an actual rock type move, okay? Don't be smart in the comments. For some reason, Lycanroc Midnight is the only form that can't learn its own signature move.
He's too edgy to learn it. Look at him. He's too busy being an edgelord.
Midnight is the only form that can't learn its own signature move. And then there's the design. I think a werewolf-themed Pokemon could have been so cool, but to me, subjectively, this design just doesn't do it. It feels like what you would get if you asked an edgy teenager to design what they thought a cool werewolf Pokemon would look like. And while it is definitely good enough to go on the fridge if your kid draws it, it's not good enough.
Oh, I like, hold up.
Would look like. And while it is,
I like this. No, not the dog. The Executor Pokemon Trozy icon is really cute.
is definitely good enough to go on the fridge if your kid draws it, it's not good enough for me. We'll talk about the number 7 Pokemon in a second, but first, I have a problem. I am not—
Oh no. I also have a problem. Shmuel, come solve it.
It's a battle, win or lose. It's the friends you make. Subscribe or you will lose. I am here to solve all the problems in the world. It is I, Small Meeple, and it is my job to live in Big Meeple's closet rent-free.
very good at giving gifts. Like, you see how bad these Pokemon are at being Pokemon? That's
Chat keeps telling me I have less than 200 BSC, but I'm telling them I'm a legendary.
about as bad as I am at giving gifts, which is a problem because, you know, holiday season is pretty much here and buying gifts is a really good way to show appreciation for loved ones.
I am watching this in August, which basically means it's Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody!
But sometimes it's really hard. However, I found a solution. Holzkern. Holzkern is a watch and jewelry brand from Austria, which I think sounds cool and fancy because
I've eaten one before, don't tell Big Maple!
I've never been there. They make products for all genders, which is awesome and also makes them really super versatile as
All genders? My gender is small.
gifts. They're also made from natural materials, which I think is neat and also makes each product unique in its own special way.
I'm all natural small.
Nothing says you're special like a one-of-a-kind watch, right, Incineroar?
I don't know if adding the greeting card of "you're special" to like the watch would be a very good gift, but I'll take it from you, Mr. VGC.
Incineroar loves his new watch because he knows it was made in a small batch, making it high quality and meaning it'll be able to endure lots of switching in and out with parting shot. Holzkern are super fast too, unlike this guy. They ship worldwide and your product will normally arrive between 2 and 5 business days. And all orders placed by December 19th will arrive by December 25th, if that date has any special meaning to you for whatever reason. I've been giving Holzkern watches and jewelry to my loved ones for the holidays for a couple years now, and I gotta say, they are always a hit. These are some of the gifts I got for my loved ones this winter. If you have somebody you think would appreciate some of these really special products, check out the link in the description and use code WOLFEY for 15% off at checkout. Thanks again to Holzkern for sponsoring this video.
I love expensive snacks. Why, thank you, Mr. VGC. All right, that is the end of the ad, which means I take my leave. Merry Christmas. Woo!
I'm back, yeah. Okay, hold up. I hope Shmuel did a good job. She always tells me she does a great job.
Back to you, hater wolf. Speaking of Pokemon that aren't good enough for me, the 7th worst Pokemon in the entire franchise is Watchog. Watchog? Watchog.
Watchog.
I'm confusing myself.
I think.
Quick question about Watchog. Why is it standing like that? Fix your posture, dude. Come on. Anyway, as is the case with literally every other Pokemon I'm mentioning in this video, this thing sucks. It's a pure normal type Pokemon introduced in Generation 5 that, like Carnivine, hasn't been in a new Pokemon generation since they could start leaving Pokemon out.
Okay, but bro is a pain in the ass in Gen 5 and Lenora's gym, so...
So what makes it bad enough to be one of the 10 worst Pokemon of all time? The abilities are a good place to start. Illuminate is one of the few abilities that does absolutely nothing in competitive play. Its only role is to make the player encounter more wild Pokemon. Now, I don't know about you, but for me personally, when I'm playing through a Pokemon game, most of the time, I feel like I'm not having any issues encountering Pokemon.
Yeah.
Minus points for Watchog. It also gets Keen Eye. Worthless. The last ability is Analytic, which does nothing unless Watchog is moving last.
Okay, but Keen Eye makes me feel so powerful against an NPC when they use Sand Attack and then I laugh in their face.
But Watchog's second highest stat is its speed. Okay, speaking of its stats, they suck. The bulk is bad, the offense is bad, and the speed is just okay. Without a useful ability to help it, Watchog is more or less doomed. The best thing that I can say about Watchog is that it's somewhat useful early on in a playthrough, since you encounter it early and it evolves at level 20. That being said, in order to get one, most of the time, you're gonna have to catch and evolve a Patrat, one of the ugliest Pokemon in Generation 5. I don't think that Watchog is good enough to justify Patrat in any context. To make matters worse, Watchog is just so forgettable. It's the early game rodent of Generation 5, a generation already not generally praised for its Pokemon designs. There's a new early game rat every single Pokemon generation, and while Rattata is iconic,
I didn't realize Sintret kind of lacks a nose. It's just like Schmoll. Wait, Schmoll can make that face. There are so many Schmoll-like Pokemon out there. Oh my god.
Sentret and Furret are super cute, and even Greedent is pretty funny. Watchog just doesn't stand out in any way. Its only memorable trait is its terrible posture. Which brings us to our number 6 worst Pokemon, Mothim. I'm going to start by saying something nice about Mothim. I really like the shiny form. I am now done saying nice things about Mothim. Mothim is one of 4 different Pokemon that Burmy can evolve into.
Wait, bro, wait, Mothim... Wait, is Wormadam on this list? I don't know, man. I feel like Wormadam's like worse. I think Mothim at least looks kind of cute.
The way that it works is that all female Burmies evolve into Wormadam. And Wormadam is a really cool Pokemon. It has 3 different forms depending on the cloak that it's wearing, and each different form not only has different typing and moves that they can learn, but they also each have different stats.
Okay, that's like neat. But like... I don't know what they look like.
None of the Wormadam are very good, but that's fine because the concept itself is really cool.
Yeah, the concept.
Now, imagine you're a kid and you learn about Wormadam from your friend, and your friend only knows how to get the grass and the ground ones, but doesn't know how to get the steel one. So you both search, and eventually you find a pink Burmy. You train it up, and you're so excited, and then it evolves into Mothim. There's only one form of Mothim, and every single male Burmy turns into it no matter what form it originally was. This means it's even harder to shiny hunt for both Wormadam and Mothim, since the gender determines what the Burmy turns into. And the real slap in the face here is that Mothim is just terrible. It is really bad competitively speaking, yes, but that's true of Wormadam too. But Mothim also isn't cool. It's like a booby prize for trying to get Wormadam. It just looks like a generic bug type. There's nothing exciting about it at all. And it's bad. Bad stats, bad typing, and a bad move pool. Butterfree, who is extremely similar in design to Mothim and shares its typing, gets valuable supporting moves Sleep Powder and Rage Powder.
And on top of that, it also gets Compound Eye, so yeah.
Mothim learns neither. In theory, a Pokemon that can evolve into 2 different species depending on its gender is a really interesting mechanic. But in practice, having one of those evolutions be really unique and interesting and the other be just a generic bug does not work. Okay, we're into the top 5 now, and the Pokemon still remaining on this list are a whole nother level of terrible. Buckle in. Number 5, Obstagoon. Some Kiss fan is going to be really, really mad. Here's a question that I have about Obstagoon. Why?
Why?
So, for anyone unaware, in Sword and Shield, they added Galarian Zigzagoon and Galarian Linoon, a new take on the classic Pokemon. These normal and dark type Pokemon were effectively just a reskin of the classic Hoenn versions. They have the same abilities and stats as their Hoenn counterparts, but only Galarian Linoon can evolve into the monstrosity that is Obstagoon. Here's my main issue. Linoon is such a classic Pokemon. It's not especially strong, sure, but it's an iconic early game rodent and a core part of many 3rd gen playthroughs. It's also probably the Pokemon most players use to be their HM user for the majority of Generation 3 games.
Yeah, I used my Linoon definitely as an HM user, and also I had a team of Zigzagoons working with pickup. Look, I had to make money as a kid, okay?
Since it even learns Surf. And so, if you told me before Sword and Shield that Linoon was getting an evolution, I would have been hyped. But Obstagoon doesn't make me feel excited. It just makes me feel kinda angry. The design is certainly polarizing. I can see how if you're a big fan of Kiss or Gene Simmons, it's super exciting. But personally, I don't really have very strong feelings about either. And so I find Obstagoon to be a little unsettling. More importantly, I don't feel like they preserve the spirit of Linoon in the evolution. Linoon is this sleek, nimble little 4-legged badger snake, and Obstagoon is this hulking, looming 2-legged monstrosity with arms. Other than the neck being shaped similarly, Obstagoon doesn't even especially resemble Linoon. What about competitive play though? Well, Obstagoon does have the best stats of any Pokemon on my list today. It's got respectable bulk and a usable speed and attack stat, though I wouldn't say that either are exceptional. And it has 3 abilities that are usable, 2 of which are very good. It also gets a signature move called Obstruct, which is a fancy version of Protect that lowers any attacker's defense stat who hits the shield with a contact move. But none of this made Obstagoon good or even remotely usable. Obstagoon doesn't have any one glaring issue, it just doesn't do anything well enough that it makes players want to use it. It wasn't a very good Dynamax attacker, it needs its ability to get to a point where it's doing respectable damage, and the typing of normal and dark gives it weaknesses to common types like fairy and fighting. It isn't a terrible Pokemon, and it is certainly better than anything else on our list today, but it also just isn't good. And this, combined with the design and how they massacred my boy, is enough for me to justify its placing. Our number 4 slot goes to our first Pokemon who is not fully evolved.
Oh.
Trumbeak. Be honest, how many of you knew what this thing was called before I said something?
Yeah, no, I've seen people play the name every single Pokemon challenge, and I've watched those videos. I would not be able to tell you this thing's name.
My guess is less than half. Trumbeak is Generation 7's Pidgey. It's the middle form of Toucanon and the evolved form of Pikipek.
Yeah, I'm a bit real. I didn't remember this one either, but I remember the look, and I just thought it went from stage 1 to the Toucanon just in one go. Middle evolution, I would have not remembered at all.
Now, you're probably wondering why I selected Trumbeak and not Toucanon, right? Don't worry, I'll tell you. Toucanon has always been, competitively speaking, completely irrelevant.
Oh.
However, I think design-wise, it's actually pretty fun. It's a toucan that gets a signature move called Beak Blast. Now, is Beak Blast any good? Not at all. But is it funny?
Yeah.
I think so. Toucanon is competitively bad enough to deserve to be on this list, but the design keeps it safe. However, this protection does not apply to Trumbeak. While Toucanon is cool and a new type of bird-inspired Pokemon, and Pikipek is cute, Trumbeak is just awkward. I guess it's based on a woodpecker, which is fine, but out of all the remarkable, fantastical creatures Pokemon has to offer, this one just doesn't stand out to me. Not to mention, Trumbeak is introduced in Alola, the most tropical region we've had thus far. Now, there were a ton of woodpeckers near where I grew up in Virginia, and while Hawaii does technically have a single native woodpecker called the Northern Flicker, I would guess that it's a bird not typically associated with the state. So the design is pretty weak in my opinion, which normally wouldn't be an issue because it's a middle stage evolution. So you know that there's something more to come. But while Toucanon is a fun Pokemon to look at, it's not a very fun Pokemon to play the game with, in casual playthroughs or competitively. Competitively, Toucanon just doesn't have enough going for it to justify any use.
I'm trying to go through my memory of a Pokemon Sun and Moon playthrough right now. And I don't think I caught this toucan or trained up the little bird up until it could even be a Trumbeak, much less a Toucanon.
It's slow and its bulk isn't terrific, despite being actually pretty strong. The speed being this slow makes it difficult to use in a casual run of the games too, especially because Toucannon is weak to a lot of the common types. Toucannon's going to feel especially slow to players not as familiar with the game's mechanics, as its signature move Beak Blast has negative priority, causing it to move after nearly every other move, even when Toucannon is the faster Pokemon. The game doesn't specify this in any way, so unless you're really keyed into online resources, you might never realize during a playthrough. So while evolving Trumbeak does make it look better, it turns it into a Pokemon that's both bad competitively and in a casual playthrough. Oh, and by the way, Trumbeak actually loses a whopping 15 speed points when it evolves. So even if you do know how Beak Blast works, you're still going to be moving second a lot more often than you were before. But not evolving Trumbeak means you're using a worse Pokemon that's also not as fun to look at. No matter what you're doing, if you're using this evolution line, it's a bad deal. Now, before we talk about the top 3, I want to talk about some honorable mentions. Normally on my list videos, the honorable mentions are Pokemon that just barely didn't make it on. But for this video, it's going to be a little different. These honorable mentions are Pokemon you might expect to be on here, but I thought had some redeeming quality that kept them safe.
You see, these Pokemon actually suck. But because there's something redeeming, that whether it's cute or I like the design, it therefore does not suck enough.
We've already talked about Magikarp, Feebas, and Mr. Mime, but I think some other Pokemon people might have expected are Pokemon whose abilities actively hurt them, like Slaking and Archeops. These Pokemon, in my opinion, are memorable because their abilities are so bad. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has, at some point, tried to build a team around turning off or removing their abilities. Because if they had better abilities, they would actually be good Pokemon, they have some allure. And Slaking in particular has had a little usage over the years in competitive play, though nothing major. Another big contender is the elemental monkeys from Generation 5, Simisear, Simipour, and Simisage.
These were the guys I thought would be on the list. Just because I remember that poll from a long time ago, and basically everyone just went, yeah, no, this thing, ugly. Sorry to all the, what these motherfuckers' name again? Simisear. Damn, bro just said it too. Holy shit. Sorry to the monkey fans.
These are some of the easiest Pokemon to hate. They're generic, they're not very good, and they're from a generation that already gets a lot of hate. The thing is, the monkeys are actually useful during a playthrough since they're designed to give you a Pokemon to help with the first gym, which has a type matchup advantage against your starter Pokemon, and that's a good enough reason for me to keep them off the list. Another obvious Gen 5 Pokemon is Vanillix, who gets a lot of hate. But I think the concept of an ice cream cone Pokemon is pretty funny, and Vanillix has seen a little bit of competitive play. Safe. Bruxish is one of the ugliest Pokemon of all time, maybe the single ugliest one, but frankly, that's remarkable enough that it stays off the list.
I expected that reason. It's just that hearing it just feels different, you know? It's just like, yeah, you see, this Pokemon is so ugly, but it's so ugly enough that it makes it off the list. You are like the correct type of ugly.
Look at it! It's ugly, isn't it?
There's Cloth, who is really bad competitively, but I think it's actually a really funny Pokemon. Plus, it's kind of memorable as it's the first Titan Pokemon most players will encounter in Scarlet and Violet. Lastly, the Pokemon that most of you probably expected me to put on here, given that I'm the one making the video, is one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time, Incineroar. But Incineroar is the single best Pokemon competitively speaking, a starter Pokemon, a Pokemon in Ash's team, and a Pokemon in Smash. It was never going to make it onto this list.
You know, it's always a fever dream to me that bro is in Smash. I know it. I see this clip almost every time. But goddamn.
So now we're down to just 3 Pokemon left. 3 really, really bad Pokemon. Let's start with the third worst Pokemon of all time, Spidops. Spidops is the newest Pokemon on our list, with an introduction in Generation 9. It's the early game bug Pokemon of Scarlet and Violet, and the evolved form of Tarantula. I also like its shiny form. It reminds me of yogurt with fruit. The thing about Spidops is that from a design perspective, I think it kind of works. It's this weird bipedal spider guy, but he also has this like superhero mask effect over his eyes, so although it's a little funky, it does look kind of cool. However, if you try to use Spidops, you will quickly become disillusioned. This Pokemon is hot garbage. It's almost inarguably the worst new Pokemon they added in Scarlet and Violet. The biggest issue are its stats. What? Where's the good stats?
35
Even Ledian has a stat above base 100. The moves are terrible too. And this brings me to my second point. Why is Spidops not a bug and fighting type Pokemon? Look at the way it stands. Tell me this guy doesn't want to brawl. And actually, looking through the moves that it does learn, there are way more fighting moves in here than you'd expect for an early game bug type.
Yeah,
Counter,
actually.
circle throw, low kick, brick break, reversal, upper hand. Why does it learn this many fighting moves if it's not a fighting type Pokemon? Now, to be fair, even if Spidops were part fighting, it wouldn't save it from mediocrity.
I feel like that's just Game Freak design though. Like, why does it learn this many fighting type moves if it's not a fighting type Pokemon? I would like to introduce Pinsir. I'm pretty sure Pinsir's moveset back in the day did not learn a single bug type move. And if it did learn a bug type move, it's extremely late into the game. Like, your Pinsir moveset will be like, here's your one normal move. Would you like to learn 5 more fighting type moves? Like, it's not even the bug fighting counterpart, right? Because the bug fighting one is actually Heracross, which I also think kind of lacks a lot of bug type moves. But Pinsir being the pure bug type, learned so much fighting.
Pokemon. Now, to be fair, even if Spidops were part fighting, it wouldn't save it from mediocrity. It doesn't change the issue with its stats, but it would at least make it a little bit scarier because at present, it's not really doing much in that department. Also, Spidops' abilities are mid. Insomnia prevents it from falling asleep, which is fine but not amazing, and Stakeout doubles its damage, but only if the opponent switched out this turn. But why would an opponent switch out in front of Spidops when it can't do anything even if they decide to stay in?
Yeah, wait, like, if your opponent switch out. Yeah, why would you switch out against a Spidops? Just kill it.
I thought about putting Tarantula here over Spidops, but I think it's kind of cute. And the way that it comes down from the trees in Scarlet and Violet makes a good impression as you're just starting your adventure, which matters because it's one of the first Pokemon you can encounter. Plus, Tarantula evolves extremely early, which then means you get stuck with the ugly Spidops very early. And for me, that's points against Spidops. Should have evolved later, so we had to spend less time with you. 2 Pokemon left.
Wait, bro, that's such a good insult. I wish you evolved later so that way I can spend less time with you. Is crazy.
Terrible Pokemon. The number 2 worst Pokemon of all time is another unevolved Pokemon. Ready? Without cheating, can you tell me the name of this Pokemon?
Pheasant? Shit, bro.
If you can't, you have to subscribe. That's the rule. Ready? It's called Tranquil.
Fuck, that's Fence's the evolved one.
This is ironic because this Pokemon doesn't make me feel tranquil. It makes me feel very angry. Tranquil is the middle form of Unfezant, a Pokemon that I hate, and it's just yet another generic bird Pokemon. This one doesn't even look that different from Pidgeotto. I chose Tranquil for this list because Pidove is based on a pigeon and it's also cute. Tranquil is supposed to be based on a turtle dove, but personally, I think they messed it up. Look at this official artwork of it. Why does it look like that? Like with Trumbeak, the design is less important for the middle form, but unlike Toucanon, Unfezant is not a reward for evolving. It's just another generic looking bird Pokemon. Unfezant is sandwiched between 2 regional birds who really excel. Staraptor, who is also a normal and flying type, but is...
I love Staraptor's design, but also it might have come from the fact that when Diamond and Pearl was out, I was most likely the edgy teenager. And then when Staraptor evolved into also being edgy, I was like, yo, that's like me. For real, for real.
So iconic. And Talonflame, a fire and flying type who is also especially memorable. Unfezant, by contrast, is kind of just there. And it's also not a very good Pokemon. The stats are mediocre at best, and the move pool is extremely limited. This Pokemon learns almost no useful moves. And to make matters worse, both Unfezant and Tranquil are sexist. They both get the ability Rivalry, which causes their moves to do more damage to opposing Pokemon that match their gender, and less to opposing Pokemon of the opposite gender. The good news is that there's no effect if the opponent is genderless, so at least that's not an issue. This ability is not very good. It's been used once or twice before, but overall is considered a gimmick at best. Unfezant also gets Super Luck, which...
Yeah, that's why I cry when I catch a Shinx that doesn't have, like, Intimidate. Because you know that shit's getting Rivalry later, and it's like... Well, it starts with, right? I'm pretty sure, but I always cry when my Luxray at the end doesn't have Intimidate.
lets it critical hit more, but it doesn't really have the stats to do anything with this ability. The only memorable thing about Unfazant is that it has a different appearance depending on its gender. That being said, in my opinion, the female version is just a straight downgrade, with it losing the colorful plumage on its head. Plumage? Plumage? Someone's gonna cook me for that. Plumage. Plumage. Comparing this to exciting form changes like Florges, Vivian,
Well, like,
losing the
ain't this just animals? Mr. VGC, I'm pretty sure this is just because birds are animals. That's crazy. But even if you think about like a peacock, right? Like the very colorful like blue and green feathers that we associate with a peacock will always be on the male form of the bird, right? Because in nature, it's the male, like the male form of like that animal, that bird. Like a lion will have a huge mane if it's a guy, right? And like for a peacock, it'll have like a lot of big feathers if it's a guy, because they have to be beautiful to appeal to like the female in like our world. There's a lot of other examples, like even if you look at like ducks, right? Like the average duck will have, well, the average male duck will have the greenish like hue to their feathers. They'll have the different color feathers. And then like the female duck will actually be like similarly colored to this one, right? That's just animals.
That being said, in my opinion, the female version is just a straight downgrade, with it losing the colorful plumage on its head. Plumage? Plumage? Someone's gonna cook me for that. Plumage. Plumage. Comparing this to exciting form changes like Florges, Vivian, or Furfrou just makes it seem so much weaker by comparison. But Tranquil doesn't even have this. Both male and female Tranquil look exactly the same. Another reason why I selected it over Unfazant. Catching a Pokemon in a new game is exciting because you often don't know what it's going to evolve into. Unfortunately for players evolving Tranquil, they may wish that they never found out. A Pokemon that can still evolve further is kind of like a promise for more. Even if the Pokemon itself isn't very exciting, maybe the evolution will be. And when that promise turns out to be empty, it feels really bad. But Tranquil is not the single worst Pokemon of all time. There is no point dragging this out. I know what you came here to see. I even know that some of you just skipped to this point in the video. Go watch the rest of it. It'll make this part feel way more satisfying. Okay, are they gone? You all ready? The worst Pokemon of all time is Barbaracle. This is a real Pokemon. I did not make it up as a joke for this video. This water and rock type introduced in Generation 6. Well, I actually can't say anything nice about it.
I genuinely could not remember which generation it got introduced. But it got like a Mega? That was like in what, DA, right? I think it got a Mega. If you asked me to recall what the Mega looks like, I would not be able to tell you. But I think it got a Mega. Editor, can you put a picture of the Mega on screen? Thank you. What? Yeah, it's right there. That's the Mega. If the Mega doesn't exist and I'm just lying out of my ass right now, you can literally put nothing on the screen. It's okay.
In Generation 6, well, I actually can't say anything nice about it. It is so bad. To start, not only is Water and Rock bad typing, but it's also not especially unique. There are 11 Pokemon with this type combination, which is funny because it's not even very good. Both types are weak to grass, and it's also weak to a bunch of other common types as well. It's not just the typing though. I mean, it's actually everything. The moves, the stats, the abilities, they're all bad. Barbaracle does learn the move Shell Smash, which is a good move in a vacuum, but it's both not strong enough and not fast enough to make good enough use of it. Barbaracle is the evolved form of Binacle, a very weird Pokemon. A huge part of its design is its body, which is effectively just a rock.
How does it... Does like the rock hop, or does it like slam its face against the ground and like claw its way over? Is it just like stationary until it evolves? I don't think I've ever seen this thing move. And if I have, I've probably wiped it from my memory. I've played ZA. I should have seen this thing move. God damn.
And then it has these two angry heads with cute cheeks for some reason. I don't like it. Binacle doesn't even evolve until almost level 40. And your reward for putting all that work in is Barbaracle? Thanks. So it's not a good Pokemon competitively, and its pre-evolution is weird. What about Barbaracle's design? Well, I don't like it. First, the shiny is bad, which if everything else about a Pokemon is gonna suck, please at least give it a good shiny. But I have way more issues with it. Why is its head a hand? Why does it have 4 eyes? And more importantly, why are the eyes on its shoulder hands so much bigger than the eyes on its face hand? Why is it wearing a crop top? Why is it wearing a diaper? Personally, I think the Pokemon knows how badly they missed with this one, which is why they haven't put it in either Sword and Shield or Scarlet.
I was gonna say just let the Pokemon wear a crop top, but I can't defend the diaper.
And Violet. And to that I say, good call. Please do not put this Pokemon in future Pokemon games either. New Pokemon games will be here before we know it. And that means new Pokemon are coming soon too. But it's hard for me to imagine them making a Pokemon worse than Barbaracle, unless Junichi Masuda himself has a very, very bad day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I think you might like this other video I made talking about the worst Mega Evolutions of all time. This was a fun video to make because a lot of the Mega Evolutions that seem like they should be strong, like Mega Mewtwo, actually weren't very good.
Neat. All right. Wow. That was a lot of fun. I honestly expected Wormadam to be on the list instead of like Mothim because I always found Mothim kind of cute. But I guess that's just me. I have a lot of things to give my editor, so sorry, editor. Sorry, editor, but yeah, God, I don't think I've seen the little barnacle guy move. No, I have. It's just that it's completely wiped from my memory. Holy shit. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Seeing which Pokemon absolutely was dog shit. Not my words. Trust. That was from Mr. VGC. I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for being here. Like or something. You don't have to subscribe. Like, it's chill. You just like the video. If you want to subscribe, that's cool, but you can just like the video. That's like enough for me. Bye!